Africa is often forgotten when looking at the global economy. Therefore, in this video of Economics Matters, we are going to quickly go through almost all of the countries in Africa and give you a surface level understanding of their economies. All data is from the IMF website and the African Development Bank. Links are in the description. Let's start with Mali. Mali's growth rate is pretty good at 5.06%. This has to do with the increase in gold and cotton production. However, Mali is still a very poor country with a GDP per capita of $891. It is also under industrialized. This means that supply of goods is less and imports are high. However, Mali is doing good with inflation with an inflation rate of 0.4%. Burkina Faso is also doing good at 5.69%. Guinea is doing well at 5.64%. In fact, almost all of the West African countries have been doing well. Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, and pretty much all West African countries are doing good. However, it is important to note that the high growth rates are not due to industrialization but rather through the agricultural and services sector. Also, most West African countries also have a low Human Development Index compared to other slower growing countries in Africa. This may have to do with the Sahara Desert, which makes communication and collaboration difficult, meaning that food, water, medicine, and other facilities that are used to calculate Human Development Index are limited. However, Nigeria does stand out. With a GDP growth rate of 2.21%, it is growing at a snail's pace. In fact, it is growing so slowly that its population growth rate of 2.6% is faster than its GDP growth rate. This is not good since this actually decreases GDP per capita. Agriculture has been affected by flooding, manufacturing does not have financing. In fact, because of this, household consumption is the only sector that is doing good in Nigeria, contributing half of the 2.2% growth rate. However, since the Nigerian population is so large, so is its GDP. Therefore, a video will be coming out in the next few weeks on the Nigerian economy. Subscribe so you don't miss out. Ethiopia has been doing amazing, and I think it has the potential to become the largest economy in Africa in the next few decades. However, even it has a long way to go since it did start as one of the poorest. Although, unlike the West African countries, Ethiopia is industrializing rapidly along with good growth. Most of the growth is driven by the services and manufacturing sectors. Although 9% is an amazing growth rate, on the ground there is still a lot of work to be done. 70% of the population still works in agriculture, although this number is decreasing rapidly. Demand is good as well, with private consumption driving most of it, since domestic investment has slowed down due to the government's effort to reduce public debt. Check out my video on Ethiopia to know more about this. Also, if we were to look at 2021, I was expecting an economic recovery from Ethiopia since it did only grow by 1.95% in 2020. But as we can see, the IMF predicts the growth rate to be negative 0.02%. Now, off the top of my head, the reason this may be is because of the political tensions that are rising and the possibility of a civil war in the country. And as you may know, civil wars are not good for the economy. Tanzania's economy also looks exciting with a growth rate of 7%, although it does have a GDP per capita of $1,100. Compare this to Kenya's economy. With a growth rate of 5.37%, it usually grows a bit slower than Tanzania. However, it has a slower population growth rate. Thus, its GDP per capita is $2,200, almost double that of Tanzania. Tanzania has a diverse economy with almost every sector doing well and contributing to the growth rate, from exports, public spending to private consumption. Every indicator is showing that Tanzania's economy will be able to compete with its neighbors. Although, as we move south, we see that most countries here are growing slowly and their economies are showing signs of stagnation. DR Congo, the poorest country in the world, has many things going good and bad for it. Its GDP growth rate has slowed down from 5.82% to 4.38%. However, there is optimism that DR Congo will recover from the common public. But again, the IMF does not think so. The DR Congo's economy is expected to shrink by 2.15% in 2020 and then grow by 3.58% in 2021. This is terrible for a country where the average person earns $500. And not only this, but even if we were to look at purchasing power, it only increases to about $850. Zambia, with a growth rate of 1.84% and a GDP per capita of 1,500%. Mozambique, with a growth rate of 2.2% and a GDP per capita of $475. Angola's economy, shrinking by 0.9%, and it has a GDP per capita of $3,000. All of these countries are doing very bad. In fact, they are growing slower than developed countries who have a GDP per capita of 30, 50, even 100 times higher than these countries. Often I see the excuse of colonialism given to justify these countries' slow growth. But if we were to look at Botswana, a country with its own problems such as inequality, poverty, etc., but still a poster child for other African countries. With a growth rate of 3%, it may seem ordinary, but Botswana has a GDP per capita of $7,800 and a purchasing power of $18,500. In fact, it is the only country in Africa, excluding small countries like the Equatorial Guinea, that has a chance of becoming a developed country in the next decade. It may have performed badly in 2020, as we can see with a growth rate of negative 9.6%, but it is expected to be the fastest growing economy in Africa in 2021, with a growth rate of 8.7%, outpacing all other countries in Africa. This is because they were able to create an actually good plan to combat the economic crisis that is 2020. Often people will look at the 2020 numbers and leave it be, but it is equally important to look at the 2021 forecast to get an understanding of which countries recovered and which didn't. Thanks for watching Economics Matters. Please do subscribe and hit the notifications button.